Look out, everyone! The UFC is back in big 2025 with UFC Fight Night Vegas 101 in the Apex, Dern versus Ribas 2. This is the fight card that they've put together, and this is the fight card that I'm going to be predicting in today's video. But before I get into the predictions, can you guys... What's going on? Can you guys feel that? Whoa! 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 Where am I? I think I'm at PrizePicks.com, which is sponsoring today's video, you guys. So, new member offer, play $5, get $50 instantly, you guys. It's crazy. You can use code GURU to do this as well. Did I mention you can use code GURU to do this? To play $5 and get $50 instantly? Use code GURU to do it. What I would do is, I would say that, you know, I think that, I mean, what would I pick here? You can go more or less on a few different results in the fight. You can go over to MMA and go to significant strikes, fight time minutes, fantasy score, takedowns. I reckon Jacobe Smith is going to go for more than 3.5 takedowns because Preston Parsons has a good takedown defense. So I'm going to go with him. And I'm also going to say that Amanda Ribas ain't shooting no takedowns on Mackenzie Dern. Less. That's what I would do. Use code GURU. I'm back. Whoa, what was that, you guys? Anyway, let's start with the early prelim opener of... I'm trying to make it fun, everyone. Okay? Joe Solecki versus Nurullo Aliev. I wonder what's going to happen in this fight. Joe Solecki taking this one on short notice. Important information that you need to know. Nurullo Aliev was originally supposed to be fighting Yanal Ashmuz. And on very short notice, Joe Solecki has taken this fight against Nurullo Aliev. Was Joe Solecki training for another fight, you may ask? No, he was not. However, he did take a grappling match in November, so you can assume that he's in somewhat reasonable shape for this contest. I am going to have to go with Nurullo Aliev, however, because I think he's a lot better than Joe Solecki, and I think he'll probably out-grapple him and beat him. He could also get a TKO in this one because I don't rate Joe Solecki's stand-up too much. So maybe there's some good value on a Nurullo Aliev TKO. We move on. Victoria Dudakova versus Fatima Kline. Now, I don't know why Fatima Kline is such a huge favorite in this fight. I feel like people may know something I do not. I'm just going to double check things right now. But, or maybe I'm not going to double check things, but I am going to double check things right now. But Victoria Dudakova is allegedly a massive underdog here. And that means the odds makers know something we just don't. Do not question it. They're not letting you make money on Victoria Dudakova. Or they are. They're not letting you make money on Fatima Kline. She's a 9-1 favorite over Victoria Dudakova in what would otherwise be somewhat of a 60-40 matchup. They know something about Victoria Dudakova that we do not. I'm picking Fatima Kline. I don't know what the story is, but there's some kind of story behind the scenes. Because 48% of people are picking Victoria Dudakova, but the odds makers have got Kline a 9-1 favorite. I've always considered this a 50-50 fight that leans towards Kline. So what's going on here with all the odds makers got such a massive underdog? There's something. Do not trust it. We're going with Kline, and literally for that reason. We move on. Up the card to another fight, which is Magomed Gadzhiyasulov versus Bruno Lopes. I'm going to have to go with Magomed Gadzhiyasulov to win this one. He didn't look the best against Preston Ribeiro, but he did get the win, and I thought he got the win pretty clearly, even though it was somewhat of a competitive fight. He does need to work on getting better damage off when he does establish control over his opponents. However, Bruno Lopes also did not look good against Preston Ribeiro. And by not look good, I mean he got KO'd in early in the rounds, I'm pretty sure. He has beaten some good opponents since then. But he actually got finished in the first round by Preston Ribeiro, who went on to lose to this Magomed Gadzhiyasulov, who's 9-0, coming into his prime, 31, Sambo background. You know the deal with these guys. You know the deal. I don't need to explain it. He's beat some good opponents, beat a good guy on the Contender Series. He hasn't looked amazing. I'm going to be real. There's some signs. At some point, this guy will be a favorite because of his name. And there will be a guy. This is like an Abubakar Magomedov. You know what I mean? Like good and still one of them. But not. We're not talking Khabib, Makhachev, Umar stuff. You know what I mean? We're not talking direct family. We're just talking distant family. So there will be a time to pick against Magomed Gadzhiyasulov, but I don't think it's going to be against Bruno Lopes. That's my take on this. I'm going to go with Magomed Gadzhiyasulov. Yeah. But at some point, I'll pick against him. Like, if he comes up against, I mean, what's a good light heavyweight example to say that he might come up against? Like, I'd probably pick someone with talent to beat him. That I trust with talent. Like, who's I don't know. I can't think of a light heavyweight with talent right now outside of the rankings. But, like, I would consider picking Da Un Jung against him. But I'm not picking Bruno Lopes. We move on. Ernesta Kareckaite versus Nicolle Caliari. Now, this one's really interesting. You're going to love this one. You're going to love my reasoning for this one. I think I'm going to go with Caliari. She's Brazilian. That's normally a good sign for a female fighter because, as we know, in Brazil, the women and the men are like meeting in the middle somehow. I don't know what's going on. But that seems to be what's happening over there. This woman's got consistent finishes throughout her entire career. I like that sign. I don't like that she lost to Kay Hansen. I don't. Game's a game, innit? She's pretty good. Good submission skills. Good submission background. Ernesta Kareckaite's 26, though. Whoa. Look out. She's a pretty good fighter as well. Just lost her debut to Dion Barboza. Arguably should have lost to Carly Judice, but she got the win. It is what it is. It was actually a pretty sick fight, if I remember correctly. A little bit of a kickboxer. Rangy, tall kickboxer. Facing a woman that's probably going to get a takedown and a submission. I'm going to have to side towards Nicolle Caliari to get this one done. So yeah, I'm going with her. We move on. Preston Parsons versus Jacobe Smith. I'm going with Jacobe Smith. This was one of the prospects on the Contender Series this season. And he delivered. You know, he chucked around his victim very well. There was a few opponents. There was a few fights on the Contender Series this year that were really good and evenly matched. And then there was another few that were just, who's this guy and why is he being fed to the wolves here against this guy who's going to just chuck him around because he's built like a middle-aged man. Like, some of the matchups on the Contender Series this year were kind of crazy. But Jacobe Smith delivered, ragdolled his opponent, finished him. Wicked skills. Great wrestling, great grappling. I think he will beat Preston Parsons. Now, Preston Parsons can be an issue for certain levels of opponents. He can. You know, he gave difficulty to the great Matthew Semmelsberger. This guy gave some difficulty to the great Orban Elliott. Okay? Trevin Giles, he gave some level of difficulty to, but I think what separates them all is the offensive grappling of Jacobe Smith and the relentlessness that he has and the athleticism that he has. Orban Elliott seemed to take the takedown defense and pick on the feet approach against Preston Parsons. I reckon Jacobe Smith's going to be able to use his offensive grappling here, and that may be the difference. So, although Preston Parsons is normally a good underdog because he's a strong dude, athletic dude, not too fast though. I think he's going to get out-scrambled here. I just see him getting out-hustled, out-scrambled, being on the back foot a lot because I don't think he's fast enough to lead the dance safely. So I'm going to go with Jacobe Smith, or Jacoby Smith, however you pronounce his name. Jacobe. We move on. Thiago Moises versus Trey Ogden. Now, first of all, I don't see a finish here. That's a take I'll have. I reckon that Thiago Moises... a tricky one, though, because Ogden is known to ruin everything. And when do you stop picking Moises to win? He keeps losing. But Ogden's not special in any way, and he has no finishing potential. This is the issue that I have with Trey Ogden, and he's getting older and older. Now, Thiago Moises is also getting older and older, but Thiago Moises trains with the fighting nerds. Okay? Now, he's kind of unknown amongst the fighting nerds because he's not winning any fights, and that ruins their whole marketing strategy. So they ignore the reality that he's a part of their team and losing, and say that the fighting nerds are undefeated, they're destroying everyone. Here's Bruno Brazil as well, by the way. But I didn't mind his performance against Ludovic Kline. Like, I didn't think it was a great... I mean, he lost, but I didn't think it was like... Certain opponents that he just doesn't get destroyed by. You know, he holds his own against... He even held his own against Makhachev in moments. Like, he took him to round 4. He took him down. He took down Makhachev. He got the back of Makhachev for a moment. Like, he is good, but he's just not good enough to be a top dog. But he's good enough to beat Trey Ogden. Trey Ogden is undynamic. He no real finishing potential. He has some good entries on takedowns, but I don't think he's going to smush Thiago Moises. He's on a bit of a streak right now in his career, but I just don't see him winning this. I don't see him winning this one. He beat Kurt Holobar in Loic Radzhabov. I think Thiago Moises is just that little bit of a jump up here, and I reckon he will lose to Thiago Moises. And oh, you know what? I can so see Ogden fucking boringing his way into this one. Because I don't really see him getting, like, destroyed in the grappling, and maybe he'll put more volume out there. Am I going to have a switch up of a prediction here? I think I am. I was thinking Ogden, but then when I went to the prediction, I thought, no, I'm going to go Moises. But, you know what? I'm going to take Trey Ogden as an underdog here. I don't think Moises is going to, like, expose him on the ground. I think Ogden's good enough to sort of avoid being, like, having his back taken for an entire round's end. And I don't think Moises is going to, like, finish him on the feet either. I reckon this could be, like, a Trey Ogden boring 29-28 where he just out-tippy-taps you with volume. You know what I mean? So I'm going to go Trey Ogden here as an underdog, funnily enough. I'm done picking Moises. We're going Trey Ogden. We move on. Marco Tulio versus Ihor Potieria. Dude, Ihor Potieria gets no easy fights and no breaks between difficult fights either. I rate him for taking all of these fights, but I am going to go with Marco Tulio. I think he's incredibly underrated. I believe he's dating Norma Jamont, someone told me. So this dude, all he does is win, okay? He needs this, okay? This is just a lifestyle winning for him. And I reckon he gets this one done. You know, they should have signed him after he beat Yusri Belgarui. But the UFC was mad that Belgarui lost, so they just didn't sign the guy that beat him, basically. They were trying to make an example of, like, you aren't ready for the UFC and we have standards. You know what I mean? When they play that whole game on the Contender Series where Dana pretends they have standards and then you literally see, you know, some morbidly obese heavyweight out there the very next weekend. It's one of those funny games that he plays. He beat Yusri Belgarui, looked good, did well on the feet in that fight as well, even though Belgarui is a sick kickboxer who's fought against Adesanya. I believe he has a win over Adesanya as well. Maybe a loss. Maybe he has a win over Pereira and lost twice. Something like that. I think he's 1-1 with Adesanya and 1-2 with Pereira or something along those lines. But yeah, he got beaten by Tulio on the Contender Series, on the feet and in the grappling as well, of course, where you'd probably expect him to lose that fight to Tulio. But Tulio still got it done, went back to the regional scene at LFA, fought Chimi Dos Santos, beat him, not the best opponent, but he got a win over there and got a nice easy finish. And then he came back on the Contender Series as well in the next year and beat that opponent as well with a spinning back kick to the body. So I'm going to go with Tulio. He's got momentum right now. He didn't really fight the best of opponents leading into his Contender Series fight, but it's not like he was can-crushing. You know, 2 6-1 opponents when he was 6-1 and 7-1. So I trust this guy to win. He's got good stand-up, good grappling as well to mix in. He has been chinned before, but I think he's got a decent chin from what I've seen. Trains at Shooter Box, Diego Lima. I'm going to go with Marco Tulio here to get this one done. I just don't... Ihor Potieria, he's good. He's somewhat elusive and he moves quite well on his feet. And he does have a decent chin himself. There's just too many losses now. The eye pokes were tough against Cesar Almeida, but I think Tulio's going to get it done. I do think Tulio's going to get it done. I'm rooting for Potieria though, man. He's been done dirty in his career. Look at his resume. So he gets in the UFC. He has to fight Nicolle Negumereanu, who was 12-1 at the time. He ends up losing. Then he gets Shogun Hua. They give him a layup, get a win against this fat old man, beat him apparently you're exactly the same level of legacy as Jones after that win. No, I'm joking. But Carlos Ulberg beats him, destroys him in the first round. He realizes he's too small for light heavyweight. Rodolfo Bellato also beats him, but he fumbles a win over Rodolfo Bellato. So that's tough. Robert Brycek he beats, but that guy weren't all that good at all. You know, Mikel Pereira destroys him in the first round. Little did he know if he survived longer than 54 seconds, another 6 seconds until they got to the minute mark, Pereira would be a useless individual in the cage and would have lost that fight to Ihor Potieria. Tough luck, 6 seconds off a one-sided destruction from Ihor Potieria. Cesar Almeida he loses to as well, all the eye pokes and the groin shots, and the referee just didn't stop it for anything, and he was getting cheated in that fight. So I do root for him, but yeah, I'm gonna go Tulio, man. Tulio's a really good prospect to me, and I think he'll do very well in this fight. We move on. Jose Johnson versus Felipe Bunes. I'm gonna go Jose Johnson. I just think he's a difficult, tricky task at flyweight, and you need to be somewhat talented to beat him. And even people that are really talented seem to struggle with how tall and rangy he is for the division. Bunes just lost in his last fight to Joshua Van. That was kind of a shifty apart, fix him up type of fight, though, because he was supposed to be fighting Bondar, but it is what it is. He loses. Very different opponent, to be fair. But, you know, he lost. Lol. Jose Johnson next. A year later. I kind of like that he took a year off, but he's 35, so do I? Not really. I should have read his age before I said that. He's fought good opponents, though, man. He's fought good opponents. He fought Murad Magomedov, fought Bakuyev, he fought Formiga on the regional scene, lost all of them. But these are some decent opponents, to be fair. I will be going against him, though. I'll be going against him. Lost too many damn times. Has not proven to be a great prospect himself. And he's going in there against not a good opponent, because he is 16-9, Jose Johnson. I do see his record. But I think he's like 6 foot at flyweight, and he's pretty nasty in the scrambles, and he's got a 71.5-inch reach. You got to be talented to figure out that problem in that division. And if I go through Jose Johnson's career, I think Asu Almabayev beat him. And even that was like tricky for Almabayev in moments. Damon Blackshear beat him. Chad Anheliga nearly did well against him, but not quite, because he has decent scrambles. He ended up getting a rear naked choke over him. And the Damon Blackshear fight was at bantamweight. So, yeah, I'm going to side with Jose Johnson. He beat Jack Cartwright pretty well on the Contender Series, and that was someone who I thought was quite good. So, yeah. Who is quite good. I don't think he's a good prospect. I don't know what happened to him now, but Jose Johnson, very, very good. So, yeah, I think he'll win the fight this weekend. I've lost the card in front of me. We move on to another fight up the card. Oh my God, there's so many prelims. Oh, we're on the main card. No, we're not. We're not, though, are we? Punahele Soriano versus Uros Medic. This is a decent one. Lightweight versus middleweight. Uros Medic wins. Okay? Big lightweight. Looked good at welterweight in his fight so far. I know he didn't do well against Maitak Bekorulblai, but he did nearly finish him in the first round, even though he did lose as the fight went on. It was a different style matchup that got put on him, and he was doing well. You know, he's supposed to be fighting Johnny Parsons, and he got Maitak Bekorulblai on short notice. How's that fair? You know? But he ends up losing that, but doing well early on. Beats Matthew Semmelsberger, finishes him. Takes shots a lot better at this division as well. Just destroyed Tim Means in the first round and got a nasty KO with a performance bonus. Now he's looking to get back in there again. He was supposed to fight Danny Barlow in August, which didn't end up happening, but I'm going to go with him over Punahele Soriano. Punahele Soriano, at one point when he was throwing hooks at middleweight against, I believe it was Oscar Piacota or something like that. Yes, Oscar Piacota. I thought, this guy's talented. He's going to be a monster. And then he did the same thing to Todorovic. And I thought, oh my God, this guy's got really good KO ability. And he's actually really talented. And then his next few fights, he just kind of looked terrible. Then you're losing to Dustin Stoltzfus. Then you're not looking the best against Miguel Beza after he's been off for 3 years. I'm going to go Uros Medic here over Punahele Soriano. It might be a dangerous fight, but I think he'll have way better technique and he'll be a lot faster. So I could actually see an Uros Medic early TKO over Punahele Soriano, in all honesty. We move on. Austin Bashi versus Christian Rodriguez. So this is the Austin Bashi fella I've been hearing all about, huh? What a guy. Wrestling. Through the roof, this guy. Very good. Seems very good. This Austin Bashi guy looked very good on the Contender Series against a fat, out of shape dude. Which is okay. I said earlier on the video, you know, some people get competition on the Contender Series. Others get layups. The guy was 8-2 that he fought. Now 8-4. Not the best. Lost a fight immediately after the Contender Series as well in December at the end of that year. Probably bringing his MMA career to a halt in terms of ever making it to the UFC. Didn't really fight anyone good before that, but had some decent wins, I guess. I mean, he did have some decent wins. But Austin Bashi has been beaten like Askar. You know what I'm saying? The great 15-23 Eric Vo. Are we not hearing these names that I'm mentioning? Come on. 15-23. Pat Barry. Either way. Pipe Vargas, this guy. Legendary names. 6-1 opponent, 8-1 opponent. He's fought good fighters his entire career. He's 13-0. He's got a wicked wrestling background. Fuck, man. It's difficult because Christian Rodriguez, I guess I should talk around his opponent a bit as well. Christian Rodriguez does very well against that style of opponent where you got to stuff takedowns and then like wear on them with like good technique while you're both fatigued. That seems to be the game plan of Christian Rodriguez. We're both going to get tired, but when we both get tired, I'll be better technically than you. So I do want to pick Christian Rodriguez as an underdog, but it's a risky one, right? He just lost to Julian Erosa. No! Austin Bashi destroys him. Whoa! I thought he was coming off a win against Isaac Dulgarian. Whoa! I completely forgot this guy lost to Julian Erosa. He'll never be anything in his entire career. And that's it. Okay? How are we losing to Julian Erosa? Now, Erosa is tricky, to be fair. You got to have some pop in your shots to deal with him. But round one? Julian Erosa didn't even have to break you down and break you mentally in the third round? Round one finish for Julian Erosa? God, that's a stain. I do see shades of Raul Rosas Jr. in Austin Bashi's game. But I think he's more credentialed. He's more experienced. He's older. I think he's still quite young. 23, but yeah. A lot older. A lot more experienced. His stand-up looks a lot better than Raul Rosas Jr.'s as well. So I'm going to side with him to win this fight. And I think he'll get it done. I don't think he'll get a finish, though. Even though Erosa just finished. I reckon we'll see a 29-28 where Christian Rodriguez has a good third round, but it's not enough. That's the vibe I'm getting from this fight. But it'll be like a really good test for Austin Bashi. So, yeah, we'll see if he delivers. A lot of people have been talking about him, paying attention to him. I have. I do sense some, like, not capitalizing enough off of the takedowns and people getting back up a little bit too easily. And sometimes he's a little open on the feet. So there will be a time where that won't pay off if he gets chucked to the dogs too early. But I do think he'll beat C-Rod here. And it's at featherweight as well. He's been planning on moving to featherweight. I know he's been a bantamweight on the regional scene. But this has been his planned move, is that he's going to go up to featherweight. And that might be a sign of, I can make bantamweight now, but when I start fighting people that give me more resistance, I'm going to need some extra gas in the tank. I can't be draining myself down to bantamweight like this. So I kind of rate it. Let's go Austin Bashi, getting this one done by 29-28 decision, losing the third round to Christian Rodriguez. We move on. Chris Curtis versus Roman Kopylov. Crybaby Curtis. Chris Crybaby Curtis. What a loser. What a crybaby this guy is. I'm going Roman Kopylov to win this one. Let's go Russia. No, Chris Curtis is... He's good, but he's just too basic, man. I think Roman Kopylov is going to set patterns for him on the feet. 3-rounder here. I don't see Kopylov shooting for takedowns and failing them, which is where Chris Curtis gets a lot of opponents of his in trouble. When they start shooting on him and they start failing and then they're a bit too close and then he catches them. But I also don't see him getting, like, broken down on the feet by Chris Curtis. Curtis isn't going to go out there and KO him in the first round. Cut to Chris Curtis KOing him in the first round with a fucking wheel kick or something, but he's not going to be that guy, I don't think. Not for Kopylov, anyway. I think he's going to have to, like, tank everything Kopylov's got and then break him in the later rounds with body shots and stuff. And the fact that Roman Kopylov came to Curtis's gym and did training, and then a few other opponents went to Curtis's gym, or no, what was it? A few Russian opponents went to Curtis's gym, where Kopylov, I believe, has trained before. And Curtis was getting all antsy about spies in his camp. And then sort of walked it back afterwards saying, no, guys, it wasn't. It's fine. He didn't do any of that stuff. The fact that he had that sort of nervous energy about it, I guess most fighters do. They're going to keep an eye on what goes on their gym, what goes on in their gym, and who enters and who leaves. But it speaks to a bit of, I kind of know Kopylov's going to beat me, and I'm going to try and cry about it and give my excuse ahead of time. A little bit is what it reeks of. Plus, I think Kopylov's just a much better striker, and he's got more versatility in his game. Chris Curtis doesn't kick. Kopylov does a lot to the head, to the body, and the legs. Chris Curtis boxes with hooks to the body and head. He doesn't jab much. Well, he does, but not effectively, and not as effectively as Kopylov with his straight punches. He's just more versatile and more dynamic. So I'm going to go with Roman Kopylov in what will be probably a striking match. You know what? Chris Curtis is getting up there. He's had 11 losses. 37 years old. He destroyed his leg at the very end of his last fight with Brendan Allen. That's a tough injury to try and come back from. And he pulled out of a fight with Kevin Holland in October as well. And now he's here in January. As an older fighter. 37. Yeah, I'm going to go with Roman Kopylov getting this one done. We move on. Up the card. Abdul Razak-Alhassan versus Cesar Almeida. Watch out backstage, Potieria. He might go for another eye poke. This is a tricky one to predict. Cesar Almeida's a good fighter, but I did not like his performance against Ihor Potieria. You know what? I'm kind of liking the idea of an Abdul Razak-Alhassan, but a lot of people are going with Cesar Almeida, and it's thrown me off. It's thrown me off how few people are going with Abdul Razak-Alhassan, but boy, I could see him winning. I was not impressed by Cesar Almeida against Ihor Potieria. Even with all of the cheating, he still scraped by in that fight. But he did his thing, but 36 years old. I know Abdul Razak-Alhassan's not exactly new in the game or anything like that, but still. But I am seeing a split decision to Roman Kopylov. You know? I'm seeing it. I sense it. He beat Dylan. You know what? We will go with him. Maybe he had an off night against Ihor Potieria. I poked him a few times. He was on the same card as Pereira. Knew he wasn't going to live up to Pereira, so he had to sort of like do his thing in the shadows. I'm going to go with him over Abdul Razak-Alhassan. I just wouldn't be surprised if Abdul Razak-Alhassan ends up getting this win because he's explosive and dangerous, but he's had 6 losses at this point, so when do we accept that this 39-year-old may not have it in him anymore? The illegal elbows to Cody Brundage were quite effective, though. He is good. Abdul Razak-Alhassan is quite good. But I'll go Cesar Almeida. Younger, promising, training with Pereira, got the momentum. We'll go with Cesar Almeida getting this one done by... You know what? I'll say TKO. I think he might chin Abdul Razak-Alhassan. We move on. Santiago Ponzinibbio versus Carlston Harris. I'm going to go with... Oh, what the fuck is going on in the UFC with you? What is this co-main eventing for? Why is this co-main eventing a UFC card in 2025? Can we not do better? Oh, I'm going to go Santiago Ponzinibbio, I think. He took Muslim Salikov to a split decision, which is somewhat impressive. He was doing well against Holland, chewing up his legs until he lost in the 3rd round. I know he hasn't been too active, this guy, Santiago Ponzinibbio, but he did beat Alex Morono, but he was kind of losing to Alex Morono before that. Carlston Harris, on the other hand, older, 37 years of age, been inactive, lost to Chaos Williams in his last fight in May of 2024, where he got flatline KO'd by him, trying to trade on the feet with Chaos Williams in the early rounds. He did beat Jeremiah Wells, which is quite impressive. Jeremiah Wells is a monster. He beat Jared Gooden, but I wasn't too impressed with his performance, but he did beat him, and that's a solid win. Jared Gooden's a well-trained technical opponent. I don't see him getting a submission here over Santiago Ponzinibbio. I don't see the submission happening. Could he chin Santiago Ponzinibbio, who has been quite chinny recently? But he's also got momentum after his injury here as well. Not good momentum because he's been losing, but he's not been... He didn't get knocked out in his last fight, you know, which is kind of unusual for Santiago Ponzinibbio. I'm joking. Split decision with Jeff Neal. Split decision with Mikel Pereira at 170. It's kind of good signs. These are kind of good signs to me. Those are good split decision losses. You know? Split decision to Jeff Neal, but then again, Neil Magny beat Jeff Neal. But yeah, he's good enough to beat Carlston Harris. Surely. He's good enough. I'm going to go Santiago Ponzinibbio getting this one done. We move on. Up the card. Mackenzie Dern versus Amanda Ribas. See, the problem is Mackenzie's... She's got the upper half as well, but they're fake. But Ribas does have that annoying laugh. Both cheeks are good. Dern's probably a bit better. One of these ones, yeah. What are we supposed to do with these predictions? I mean, God, it's one of those evenly matched bouts. But you've got to consider the gremlin laugh of Amanda Ribas. But it's a laugh with such energy and evilness that you know she's a menace. This is one of those tricky things where it really is a bit of a coin flip here. I mean, I'm going to have to investigate Mackenzie Dern's Instagram page to decide this one. No, I'm going to go Mackenzie Dern getting this one done. She actually is pretty alright. So I'm going to go Dern. Ribas is alright on the feet, and I have no doubt that she'll win on the feet. If they do stand up the entire time, Dern can't throw a fucking punch. And she's never been trained to in her life. So, I mean, that'll explain why she can't throw a punch, Guru. I mean, she did all right against Namajunas, but she lost pretty clearly, in my opinion. Macy Barber beat her up and finished her. But she was doing all right in that fight as well, to be fair. She beat Luana Pinheiro, but she wasn't looking good early on. But she was doing all right, but she wasn't looking good. And then she got the wheel kick and got the finish. Good for her. She did beat Verna Jandaroba. This is tricky, man. This is pretty tricky because she did beat Verna Jandaroba, didn't she? And she went to a split decision with Chukagian, whose name is now Sermonara. Fuck, man. This is tricky because Ribas does have good jiu-jitsu, but a lot of women end up on the ground with Dern. And then she does tangle them up a lot more than she doesn't. She lost to Amanda Lemos. Very strong woman. Very Brazilian woman. Lost to Jessica Andrade. Very strong woman. Very Brazilian woman. See, Amanda Ribas is reminding me of one of these Brazilian women that's actually a woman. And they don't do quite well in the UFC. God, am I going to go with Amanda? God, why do I have to go with Amanda Ribas here? Fuck, someone help. Why do I have to go with Amanda Ribas? Do I have to go with Amanda Ribas? Her chin sometimes is suspect at 115. Or whatever this fucking division is. 115. Fuck, man. I hate this shit every time, man. Stupid fucking sport, man. Who fucking knows what's going to happen in Dern Ribas 2? You know what I mean? Fucking dumb. Dern won the first fight as well, which I'm not a fan of. Yeah, what happened in the first fight? Let me re-jog my memory here. It was just such an epic bout that it's just a blur in my memory, to be honest with you guys. God, I can't remember a single thing of that epic battle that they had. So Ribas won the first fight. Sorry. Ribas... I'm going with Amanda Ribas. She stuffed all the takedowns and she beat the fuck out of her. Let's go Ribas. Easy. Amanda Ribas win. Like and subscribe. Thank you for watching. Toodle Pip. See you later. Amanda Ribas by TKO in round 3 or 4. Goodbye.